Voice is breaking. Is it still breaking? No. Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, visible.
Okay. So when we talk about the theoretical portion, there's a few concepts that
Hi,
we have to discuss.
hi, hi. Your voice is breaking. We cannot hear you.
Hello.
No, sir, your voice is clear. I think any others the network problem like something.
That might be the case if it's clear for others, but you're getting some issue. In case that happens, you can try to disconnect and reconnect to the meeting if that problem persists. Okay, so there are a few concepts we need to discuss. One is vulnerability assessment. Are you familiar with this term?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what is it? What does vulnerability assessment mean?
So to find out the vulnerabilities available in a certain of software or website.
Right. So in a vulnerability assessment, you're trying to figure out what kind of vulnerabilities exist within
Yes,
a particular software or a system. Okay, and even
yes.
of course in case of websites as well. But with penetration testing, you go one
Oh,
step further.
one second.
You you try.
Anshul,
uh,
sorry for the interruption. One second. Sorry for the interruption. So, is this the first class? Like, we're starting today?
and the difference between vulnerability assessment and penetration testing is that with penetration testing, you're actively trying to exploit any vulnerabilities that you find. With vulnerability assessment, you're just seeing, okay, this is a vulnerability. Now, whether it is exploitable or not, you're not going to check for that. And when we talk about penetration testing, you can have either external or internal penetration tests. So external is where you are located outside of the network which you are testing. So basically, if you are testing something remotely, like in a lot of cases, what happens is the attacker is somewhere else, and from far away, so from some remote place, they are trying to attack a network. So if you're trying to simulate that kind of situation, that is what you are doing in the attack. That is known as a external penetration test. And if, however, you are located inside the network itself, inside the network that you are testing, that is known as an internal penetration test. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's take a look at phases of penetration testing. Now this is similar to what you might have seen with ethical hacking. So you saw phases of ethical hacking. So this is similar to that. Now the first thing you do is information gathering. You try to find out as much information as you can about your client. So who they are, what they do, what kind of services the company provides, how many employees it has. You try to figure out details related to the people working there, details related to employees. Maybe you can use that. Maybe you can employ social engineering. So as much as you find, you collect that information.
Yes, sir.
So you can, of course, the first thing you use is Google. So you simply search about them, find out as much as you can from there. You go to social media, because people have a tendency to overshare these days. They post a lot of stuff about
Yes, sir.
themselves, about their workplaces, so that's the thing that you can take advantage of that fact. Websites, okay, so see, these days every company, whether it is a small company or a big company, they all have their own websites. So there might be a lot of useful information which can be gained from just going to the website and browsing through it as well. And
Yes, sir.
if you find, if you may find something by attacking the website itself, that is also something to keep in mind. Okay, and
Yes.
the other thing that's mentioned is social engineering. So are you guys familiar with this? Social engineering?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. So if you gather employee details, if you find out how many people are working there, who's working there, then you can also make use of social engineering to find out information from those people.
Yes.
After you've done all this, okay, so you move on to the next phase, reconnaissance. Now this is similar to your scanning, that when you talk about the scanning phase in ethical hacking. So same thing basically. You're trying to, okay, now in this phase things start to get a little more technical. Okay, you try to run different port scans, you try to figure out what kind of services are running, what kind of vulnerabilities they might have. So you run vulnerability scans, port scans, all of these different kind of things you do,
Yes, sir.
and you get more and more information basically. But now you are focusing only on the technical part mainly, so
Okay,
that
sir.
you can ultimately attack your target. Again, the tools we use here now, the first thing you do is, in most cases, when you have an IP, when you know that, okay, this is a target IP or this is a target website, what you can do is employ something like port scanning. And the main tool used for that is Nmap.
Yes, sir.
Okay, there are two others mentioned, Hping and Netcat. But for port scanning, of course, you can use these, but Nmap provides more functionality than either of those. So if you have the option of using Nmap, why switch to these other ones,
Oh, yes, sir.
right? And you guys must have used Nmap previously, so you must be at least familiar with the basics of that.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So Nmap is, I would say, the
So,
most important tool that you'll see here.
so
Any questions?
yeah. So Anshul, right?
Uh, it doesn't matter what my name is. Ask whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, I'm new to this penetration because I didn't attend ethical hacking. My main focus is like penetration testing and web application security. So could you please cover like based on that? Like I'm very new to this one.
See, the thing is, I would recommend that you take the ethical hacking course before you start with penetration testing.
Yeah, but my focus is like majorly this is main for me like penetration testing because job wise I have to learn this first.
No, yeah, I
So I
understand that.
discussed like earlier. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's the
See,
reason. Like
see, the thing with this course is with penetration testing. Okay, today, like I mentioned, this is the first, you know, this is the first class for this course. So I'm going over a little bit of theory here. But for all the other sessions after this, there will be no theory. It's all going to be practical based. And while, of course,
okay,
whatever I do explain what I'm doing. But there are a lot of concepts and a lot of basics that you'll learn in the ethical hacking course. We don't go over those in this course. So
Mhm.
that's the thing. If you want to learn penetration testing, of course, I think the ethical hacking course is something you should take first. Then you come to this one, because it's like ethical hacking teaches you the basics, and penetration testing goes in depth into how to apply those concepts that you have learned, how to further utilize what you have previously learned. So that's the kind of thing that happens here. So I would very much recommend that you take the ethical hacking course first, and then you come to penetration testing, because this course does not go over the basics of everything that you've previously learned. Right? There's a lot of theory involved in ethical hacking, and that goes over a lot of new concepts. So while it is, penetration testing, if you want to learn penetration testing, of course you can take this course, but ethical hacking is necessary for that. Like it's not a separately, like it's not a completely different topic. It's all related to each other. Ethical hacking is not something that's a completely different direction. It forms the basis of your other courses, like the things you learn in ethical hacking. Okay, you will build upon them in this penetration testing course. Then you also have the web penetration testing course. So basically, whatever you learn there, you will further build upon that in all these courses. So again, like I mentioned, this course does not have a lot of theory involved. So if you're not familiar with some of the concepts that I'm talking about here, you may find it difficult to proceed.
Okay.
See, because okay,
But at least you can just try to give like a brief idea about
yeah,
that, okay? Because I started this like long back, but they didn't inform me like this is the sequence. They told me like sequence wise networking, and then you go through the penetration, and then the web. I told them like I want the web application security majorly, so they didn't inform me like this is the main one, ethical hacking. So that's the reason. Even I asked for this penetration testing like 15, almost like 15, 20 days back. So today they scheduled me this one because this is like I have very less time for me. Like within maybe like in 1 month or 2 months, I have to complete my penetration testing and web application security so that I can just go forward for my other process like for my job market. So I have right now I'm in California, right? So you might know that I have very less time right now for my uh, further proceedings. So
see, I understand that, but
yeah,
you cannot like skip things, right? You need to start from the
yeah,
beginning.
yeah, yeah. But actually, I have started in November itself. I spoke to these people. I think they didn't give me proper idea. Like they should have told me, right? So this is the sequence. So they didn't tell me the sequence wise. They told me like networking, then web application security, penetration, and web application like that. So
You're talking about scanning and okay, reconnaissance basically. So once you do port scanning, you try to figure out what ports are open on your target systems. Then you have your vulnerability scanners. So these can help you figure out what vulnerabilities are present on your target systems. You have OpenVAS, which is an open source vulnerability scanner. Then you have Nessus. Now Nessus is a good scanner, but the thing is, with Nessus, you have your mainly you need to pay if you need to use all features of Nessus. So if you are using the free edition, there's a lot of restrictions there. There's also Metasploit. Now with Metasploit, what you have is Metasploit is also a tool which comes with your Kali or your Parrot OS installations, and it's like a multi-purpose tool. So it can work as a scanner, it can work as a tool in exploitation. So it has a lot of different, you know, a lot. Basically, it has a lot of utility. It has a lot of different use cases. But for this course, I will not be focusing too much on Metasploit, because what Metasploit does is it automates a lot of things. Okay, so you just need to change a couple of settings, you just need to run a few commands, and Metasploit will handle everything else. But for our purposes, we need to see how to do these things without Metasploit, so manually. So I'll not be focusing too much on Metasploit here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then you have banner grabbing. So basically, you're just trying to check what services are running. Service identification is also what you can call this. Port checking, again, just it's just port scanning. There's no separate port checking or anything. Now, after you're done with scanning, so at the end of the second phase, you already know a lot of information about your target. So, for example, you know what ports are open, you know what services are running, you know what kind of vulnerabilities exist there, and now you can proceed with your exploitation. You can go on and you can try to attack the system.
Yes, sir.
So, when you do that, your ultimate goal is to be able to access that system, so to be able to work on that system. So that's why this phase is known as gaining access or exploitation. You can call it whatever you want.
Oh,
And
okay, sir.
okay, a few different types of attacks are mentioned here. So remote attack simply means, okay, when you are attacking a system remotely over a network. Client side attack. Now this is something that's more relevant to web applications, because every web application or every website has two portions: the client side and the server side. So your client side is the part that is visible to the user or the client who is accessing the site, and the server side is the backend, which is only accessible to, like, let's say, the website developers or the administrators responsible for that website. So if you find a vulnerability that occurs within the client side portion of the application, you make use of that, then you can call it a client side attack.
Yes, sir.
Blind side attack, okay, this is not really an attack, it's just a particular vulnerability, a very specific vulnerability. So this is not an attack. Then you have social engineering. Again, I would not say that social engineering is a type of attack, but social engineering is a way to get information from people. But I don't think you can call it an attack. At least I don't think of it as an attack. Again, the interpretation of that is up to you. But social
Yes.
engineering is mainly only used to get information. Then you have fuzzing attack. Okay, fuzzing is, let's say you have an application, and what you're doing is you're providing some random kind of input to the application, and you are trying to observe what the output is. Your goal is to make the application crash, okay, to make it, or not necessarily crash, or you may be trying to make it malfunction,
Yes, sir.
so that you might be able to exploit that to your advantage. So that is fuzzing, you know, supplying random inputs to an application in an attempt to make it crash or malfunction. Then you have DOS or denial of service. Now, can anyone tell me what denial of service is?
Sir, it's basically crash the website, or the website will not respond to any user request or anything else.
Right. So with a denial of service, you are trying to bring down a website or a server or other service.
Yes, sir.
So you're trying to make it crash. Now, this kind of attack, a denial of service attack, it's not necessarily going to help you in accessing the system or in any way gaining any kind of advantage over the system. And of course, denial of service is a very serious kind of attack, because let's say you are attacking a website, a company, and it's, let's say it's an e-commerce website. Now, if you bring that down for a while, even for like 15 minutes, if you do that, then the website tends to lose money in that case. So it's, you know, it's potentially a huge financial loss to that company. That is why in a penetration test, a denial of service attack is something that you will never be using. Okay, because
Yes.
even if you are testing the, you know, a website, if you're conducting a penetration test for a company, they will not want you to do that in such a way that it causes any kind of damage to them,
Yes, sir.
right? So bringing a website down, crashing a service, that is a very serious offense, and it can land you in a lot of trouble. So it's a technique that we know, but it's not something that we use, because it does not even give us any advantage. Okay, if you crash a website, how is that going to let you access the system? At the most, you know, the people who use it are actually your black hat hackers or your criminal hackers.
Yes, sir.
They do this kind of thing, and they can either use it because they have some personal agenda against that company or the website or whatever, or the other scenario is they could use that as a distraction while they go and carry out some other kind of attack. Okay, so that is what a denial of service attack is, and it's important to know about it, but also keep in mind that it's a very serious thing,
Yes, sir.
and it's not something that we, you know, it's not something that we use as a penetration tester or as an ethical hacker. It's not something that I'm going to use.
Okay, sir.
Okay, because in most cases it's not even going to be allowed. Before you conduct a penetration test, okay, you sit down with your client, you define a scope. Okay, like what kind of thing is allowed, what kind of thing is, you know, not allowed. And a denial of service is never, almost never going to be allowed. So
Yes, sir.
okay, but you should know about it, of course. And the last thing that's mentioned here is a man in the middle attack. Now, a man in the middle attack is where you are trying to insert yourself in the middle of a communication between two parties, and you're trying to see what kind of data is being exchanged between them. Like, you're trying to figure out the details of that communication. Again, this is not something that's going to be possible in most cases, because it's a difficult attack to carry out. But if you are able to do that, then it's, it could be, I don't know, very, what you would say, it could be very informational for you, or you could gain a lot of data, you could gain a lot of information if you are able to carry this out. And there are some tools mentioned for this kind of thing, for exploitation. Again, these lists that we see, the list of tools that are mentioned here, these are not exhaustive lists. Okay, they are not complete lists. So it's not that only these are the tools that you can use. Okay,
Yes.
but these are some of the more well-known tools that are mentioned. So like Metasploit, again they've mentioned here. Then you have the old school method of manually compiling and running exploits. So you search for an exploit, you find it, you compile that, and you run it on your target.
Yeah, okay, sir.
Then you have a tool mentioned here, which is Social Engineering Toolkit, SE Toolkit. So that is a tool which is used for social engineering. Then you
Yes, sir.
have Cobalt Strike. Okay, Cobalt Strike is not something that we use. It's okay. Uh, it's somewhat popular, but it's definitely not necessary to use it. Again, it's like Metasploit. You know, there's a lot of automation, so if you're trying to learn how to do penetration testing, this is not a tool that you would use.
Yes, sir.
Denial of service attacks. Again, denial of service, I don't agree that it allows you to access the system, but of course, it is a type of attack. That's all. Google finding vulnerable feed sites. Vulnerable feed sites, we can use this, but only to a very limited extent. Okay, let's say I have a company as my client, and they have a lot of websites. Maybe they own a lot of websites, or they have a huge website with a lot of subdomains. So maybe I can try to use Google and find vulnerable web pages there.
Yes, sir.
But that's as far as we go. What black hats do is they've used Google and Google Dorking to find out vulnerable web pages wherever they can, okay, on whatever sites they can do it. But we are not going to do that as ethical hackers or as penetration testers. And various other tools, of course, depending on your situation, the tools that you use will also change. Okay, the next thing that we need to see is post exploitation. Now, all this is also a very important part of your process, that once you have gained access to the system, okay, once you have access to your system, mainly it's going to be in the form of terminal access or command line access. Once you have that, what next? Okay, what do you do next? So these are a few things that they mentioned. One is to maintain hidden access. So you try to look for ways to maintain your access. That means you either try to look for a backdoor, or you try to install a backdoor onto that system, and you see how you can continue accessing it in the future as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay, use this compromised system to leverage others. So there might be a situation where you have hacked into one system. It's part of a network, and it usually happens, that if there is a network and there are multiple computers on the same network, it might be the case that a lot of them are configured similarly, or a lot of them might be sharing the same accounts or the same passwords. Now that would be, like, ideally that would not be the case, because that creates a security issue. But that's very much a possibility, and that does happen in quite a few cases. So if you're able to hack into one system, if it's part of a network, you might be able to use that information to hack into other systems on the same network as well.
Yes, sir.
Right, so that is also something to keep in mind. Then you have cover your footprint or cover your tracks. So maybe, do something to hide the fact that you were ever present on that system. So if you uploaded something there, delete that. If you change the system in any way that is visual, or in any way that is apparent to the owner of that system, you undo all those changes, and maybe you modify log files or delete log files. So basically what you do is you want to hide the fact that you were present on that system. Then, since you are a penetration tester, you need to capture evidence for proof of access. So you need to take screenshots, of your process, so that when you make the final report to your client, you can show them what steps you took, what was your procedure that you followed. Okay, because your
Okay.
client is not going to be sitting with you throughout the entire process. To them, what would matter is the report that you give them at the end of your penetration test.
Yes.
So to make that report, you have to document everything properly. You need to have proper screenshots, okay, so that whoever reads it can understand what is going on. And if they have visual clues, if they have screenshots as well during that, it makes it much more easier. There is, however, one thing that has not been mentioned on this slide, that is an integral part of post exploitation. Can anyone tell me what that is? Okay. Are you familiar with the concept of privilege escalation? Doesn't even know what that means. No. Okay. See, when you try to hack into a system, let's say you are able to access it as a user or as a system account or as an account that belongs to one of the services running on that system. However, unless you are a root user or unless you are an administrator in case of Windows systems, there are a lot of directories, there are a lot of files that you won't be able to access. There are quite a few things that you won't be able to run on that system. There's quite a few functions that you won't be able to use unless you are the root or the administrator. So when you hack into a system, your goal is to try and get administrator access or root access on that system. So the process of going from a user account to a administrator account, that is what you call as privilege escalation. So you are escalating your privileges. Okay, you have user privileges, you're trying to get root privileges. So that's the kind of thing that's known as privilege escalation, and that's an important part of this phase, this post exploitation phase. Any questions here?
Sir, by using any tools we can get the access, or we have to try to put any logical things or different types.
For getting access or for privilege escalation?
So privilege escalation. Like I am a user. I
Hmm.
want to access the root permission.
Okay, so for privilege escalation, as we go throughout this course, you'll see different techniques that you can use for the privilege escalation.
Okay, sir.
Again, a lot of that depends on how that system has been configured.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Okay, sir.
so there's no one fixed way to do that. There are different techniques.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, after you do all that, you come to reporting. So after you are finished with your process, you have to create your report, and your report can include reports generated by the tools that you've run throughout your process. They can include proof of access, so basically your screenshots or all the evidence that you collected, all that you can include in your report. You can include lists of fixes, so whatever issues, basically security issues you found, you can include how to fix those. You can provide techniques to avoid further access. So again, this is the same thing, list of fixes. Provide proof that you no longer have active access to the system. Now, this would not be a part of the report. This is something you would do separately.
Yes,
And
sir.
okay, all the information that you have, okay, from what you did, how you did it, whatever screenshots you've collected, whatever suggestions you have for fixing those security issues, all of that you can compile into your report. And once you're done with that, you present this report to your client. Okay, so you take them through it, you explain it how as best as you can, and after that you can offer assistance in other things like patching those vulnerabilities, in training the employees, in policy management, creating policies, creating additional security policies for the employees to follow. So you can provide all these extra services, of course, for extra charges. Then you can do a
Yes,
final
sir.
assessment of the network before you leave. You can schedule a regular audit with your client, which is basically, in a lot of cases, especially when you're talking about compliance requirements, they require a company to get an audit uh, or a penetration test every, like, let's say every few months, maybe every 3 months, every 6 months, or even in some cases annually, once a year. So you can also get a regular audit schedule with your client.
Okay, sir.
And okay, and one important thing that's mentioned here is encrypt your reports or findings. So can anyone tell me why that is important?
So that no one can see without any admin privilege. Like you are the tester and the client is the admin. So no middleman can read that report.
Exactly. You, the as a tester, and your client, only
Yes, sir.
these two parties should have access to the report. No one else should be able to access it, because
Yes.
the report contains a lot of confidential information, including the
Yes, sir.
security issues that are present in your client systems. So if someone else gets access to it, they can do a lot of damage there.
Yes, sir.
So you should take care that whatever report you generate, that is only between you and the client and no one else.
Yes.
So once all of that is done, your penetration testing process is over now for that system.
Yes.
Okay, now any questions so far?
Sir, actually, I have a question. After completing this course, so what can we do? Like we can penetrate the websites and